teaching. It might be argued that the teaching ministry of Christ is primarily an example of God condescending to humanity and teaching us the truths of God. This is indeed an important dimension of this idea, but it is by no means the only one. Equally important is the part it plays in Jesus' fulfillment of the obligations of humanity. In many ways, the teaching ministry of Christ forms the basis on which we trust that God can use human words to communicate His truth to us. We also, because of the unique nature of Christ, can trust that when Jesus teaches something, it is God teaching it. Though God indeed spoke through the Old Testament prophets, those prophets were not hypostatically united to the being of God. They were messengers. They were not also simultaneously the message. It is also through the teaching ministry of Jesus that the actual activity of God is interpreted to human beings. Surely human words cannot capture the depth and richness of the divine will and mission, but they point beyond themselves to indicate far more than they can fully articulate. Again, the fact that Jesus is indeed fully God and fully man comes into play in a strong way. When we encounter the teaching of Christ, we do not have to do with merely a human interpretation of God's activity in our midst, but a fully divine interpretation spoken by human lips and articulated with human language. Further, if Jesus was able to articulate and interpret God's will and mission among humanity in human language, He must have been able to comprehend these same things within His human mind. Again, this is not to say that there is nothing that is true of God that cannot be comprehended by the human mind, but rather because Jesus understood the gospel and taught the gospel is indeed understandable within humanity, and our humanity is not intrinsically a barrier that inhibits us from understanding it. We must be ever aware to the danger of thinking that Jesus is simply a teacher of truths and not also the very truth of God in His own person. Thomas F. Torrance put it extremely well. He, Jesus, is truth communicating Himself in and through truths, who does not communicate Himself apart from truths, and who does not communicate truths apart from Himself.